As soon as you do what you really love, then you expose your nakedness, right? You say, this is what I'm really like. Instead, you just shove that under the bed and you do something you don't care about at all, and then if people judge you, it doesn't matter. But the problem with that is there's no life there. There's no force. There's no you. And without that, the suffering will do you in, and then you'll become a bad person. And that's not a good thing. So you have to see what it is that you find meaningful, whatever that is, and then you have to fight for it. You have to fight against yourself, you have to fight against other people, because what do they know about it? You have to fight against nature maybe even, to stand up for what it is that sustains you. And that takes courage. It also takes honesty. Partly because if you're not honest, you can't trust your own intuition. So this is an important thing. You think about this, and this is why virtue is a necessity. If you lie to yourself or to other people, then you corrupt the structure that you use to interact with being. You corrupt it. And if you corrupt it, then if you listen to it, it will guide you the wrong way. Or maybe it'll be so corrupted you can't listen to it at all. Then you have to listen to somebody else. And that might not be a good thing, especially if you're already corrupted. Because then you'll listen to the person who tells you to do what you really want to do, but won't admit it to yourself. And that explains how Hitler found all his followers. They'd abandoned their own mode of being. It made them bitter and resentful, and empty, and hollow, and weak, and cruel. And then they trained their leader to tell them what they wanted to hear. If you're honest, which is painful, you'll see that a lot of things you say aren't real. You'll see a lot of things that you do make you weak. You'll see that a lot of people you associate with are probably not good for you. And then you have a lot of difficult choices to make. You can stop with the obvious lying. That'll clear things up for you a lot. And you can start communicating with people. One of the things I teach my clients is if you're resentful, say something about it. Say something about it. You tell the person, look, what you asked me to do is making me resentful. Now, if they're your wife or husband or someone you love, you should listen to them, because they might say, well, grow up, take your damn responsibility and leave me alone. And maybe they're right. Or maybe they're a bit of a bully and you have to say, quit pushing me around. And then maybe you have to have an argument with them, an honest argument, where you say, look, this is what's happening to me. And they say, look, this is what's happening to me. And you battle it out until you reach some sort of settlement, and then you don't have to be resentful anymore. Then you won't be mean and cruel and vicious. And you have to be honest in order to do that. Here's a way of thinking about error. You don't exactly know what you're doing, so how do you get to the point where you know what you're doing? I think follow your internal intuitions, be honest about it. And what'll happen is a star will appear and guide you. And the star is whatever makes your life meaningful. And maybe you'll take some tentative steps in that direction. And you'll get a little ways and you'll think, no, that's wrong. And then the thing that makes your life meaningful will appear over there, and then you take a few tentative steps in that direction. But as you step and walk towards these things, you change, and as you change, you get wiser. And what happens is if you keep following these things that make your life meaningful, then you correct yourself across time. You see the thing there and that's wrong, and you see it there and that's wrong, and you see it there and that's wrong, but you keep chasing it, and as you chase it, you move forward. And as you move forward and you do things and you learn from your mistakes because you're honest and you're watching, you get wiser and wiser. And the consequence of all those mistakes is you'll self-correct the mistakes, and 20 years down the road, maybe you won't be making so many mistakes. They say it takes 10,000 hours to be an expert at something. So you would need 10,000 hours of practice following what it is that you need to follow. I'm going to close with two things. I've come to the conclusion, as a consequence of studying the things I've been telling you about, that belief has a religious substructure. If you go all the way down into someone's belief structure, right to the bottom, what you find are religious presuppositions. The person might not agree, but I don't think that matters. I think generally people don't know. Here's an old religious presupposition. It's older than Christianity. I suppose Christianity is the most powerful proponent of this viewpoint. There's a heaven and there's a hell. And you should live your life so that you end up in one of them. What's happened to Christianity is that that's an afterlife thing. I don't think it is an afterlife thing. I think it's a now thing. I see people who are in hell all the time. You can see them if you walk down Bloor Street. I'm not kidding, it's no joke. If you walk by someone in hell, you can't look at them. You won't look at them, you'll give them a wide berth, and if you look at them, and you really look at them, they'll either become aggressive or ashamed, because they do not want you to see where they are, because they don't want to see where they are. And by the same token, heaven's a real place too, and now and then you're in it, but you don't notice because you don't believe in it. There was an old gospel, Gnostic gospel, that was dug up in 1957, the Gospel of Thomas, and in the Gospel of Thomas, Christ says, "The kingdom of heaven is spread out on the earth, but men do not see it." And I don't think that's a metaphor, or maybe it is a metaphor, it's a deep metaphor. It means that life, human life, is very expensive, and we live in the middle. It's kind of a mediocre middle often, and at one extreme there's hell and the other extreme is heaven, and we bounce back and forth between them without really noticing. And I could say, well, here's something to consider. If the things you're doing are landing you in hell, stop, unless you want to be there. And you know, if you think, all you have to do is think about your life over the last year. You can be certain that you can call to mind times when you would have rather that did not happen. And so the lesson from that is clear. Don't set up those conditions anymore. And by the same token, if you watch yourself, you can tell when you're where you want to be. And I could say, well, if you're where you want to be, and that's really the right place, then all you should ever do is practice to be there. The kingdom of heaven is spread out on the earth, but men do not see it. So this is what I would say about virtue. Virtue, first, is the attempt to see that heaven. And it's a questioning thing, and I'm not saying it's the same for everyone. I don't believe that at all, because people are individuals. Just to see it. And the second thing is to attempt to live in it. And I truly believe that there is nothing that you can do that's better for being. Not only for yourself, but for everyone that you interact with. None of you know your potential. People are amazing creatures. You know that people can be abysmally awful. But they can be as remarkably good as they are abysmally awful. I think it's rare, but it's not beyond the realm of possibility. What's a human possibility? Well, no one knows. Maybe it's near infinite. We know nothing about our own being or about our relationship with the totality of things. We may occupy a more important place than we all think. And the consequences of our actions, our virtues or our lack thereof, may echo far beyond what we want to believe. So I would say, try to find out what's good for you. Just watch. Don't listen to anybody else, or maybe you should. Maybe they'll give you some hints, you know? But you got to sort it out for yourself. And when you find out what's good for you and what isn't, do the things that are good for you until you like being alive, until you're thrilled to be alive. And see what happens. And I would also suggest there's nothing you could possibly do that will be more profound and useful than that. That's all. Thank you.